Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Did you have a nice weekend? Yes? What did you do? I don't hear anything. Walking in nature? Anybody? Sports? Anything else? Studying? Yes? Guillaume, what did you do?
Sorry?
What did you do in the weekend?
In the weekend, I was in Marseille, in the south of France, where I live.
What did you do?
I do walking with my baby.
Oh, working with your baby.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we're going to start the presentation Edible Paris. Our speaker, Guillaume, flew all the way from Marseille this morning to Wageningen. So Guy, let's give him a big applause, because it's a big thing.
Thank you.
What time did you have to wake up, Guillaume?
4:30.
4:30?
Yeah.
Did anybody
That's
here
okay.
woke up today at 4:30? 5:30? 5:30. Why did you wake up so early? For studying. Oh, not too good. Great. This lecture is part of the Student Challenge Design the Ultimate Urban Greenhouse. So I would like to welcome all the student teams participating in the challenge. Can you raise your hands? Nice. Welcome. There are also some teams that are participating but online, because this event is live streamed. So welcome to everybody who is watching us online, but also for you guys who don't want to be on the screen, who don't want to be recorded, you can use this corner to sit down. So anybody still wants to change their position now? No? Okay, great, nice. I also would like to welcome our supporters from Rabobank, from Triodos Bank, from Klaasman Delman, and all other people who have been helping us. Very nice to have you here. And I'm also very curious about the public who is not involved with the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. Who are you guys? Do we have any urban farmers here? Anybody who would like to be an urban farmer? Maybe. Maybe. Anybody doing research on this topic? Yes? Your PhD, what do you do?
I do research on the coupling between what we call new sanitation, that's the recovery of nutrients from city streams, households, wastewater streams mainly, and the coupling with urban agriculture. So to see what kind of products could we use to, let's say, feed the crops in urban agriculture.
I'm really looking forward to Guillaume's presentation, actually. I have been excited about it already for 3 weeks or more. I hope you are also very enthusiastic and interested about it. So I leave the floor now to Guillaume, and please give him once again very big applause.
Thank you very much. So it's the first time I do this presentation in English. Usually I do that in France and in French. So please... So you're also really welcome to ask me questions whenever you want. So you raise your hand and you ask me questions. I have some questions for you in my presentation, so we'll see that. So together we're going to see what's going on in Paris now, because this city with this mayor is really increasing the urban farms projects into the city. And we're going to see some projects, I mean real projects, not virtual projects on 3D design or stuff like that. We're going to see really what's going on in Paris with the real projects, okay? Okay, so I'm working for this institute, which is a public institute in France, with the French ministry. We have 10 experimental stations around France, and I specifically work since almost 4 years about urban farming. And the idea for us is to understand what's going on in urban farm, what are the innovations, technical innovations, economical innovation, and social innovation that can be interesting for our producer, because we work for producers, which are horticulturists, nursery, landscape companies, and now we have a few urban farmers, which are part of our institute. It's called Astrodor. So my mission, I call it my mission, but it's more an assignment, was to focus on more than almost 100 urban farms since maybe 3 years. So I visited a lot of urban farms, from the US to Japan to Canada. I also visit some of them in Netherlands, especially on the roof in Den Haag, made by urban farmers. It was a really impressive roof. I specifically focus on urban farm professional projects, because we have individual projects, we have community gardens, as you really know, I think, but I specifically work on professional projects, which are quite new now. That's why we talk about urban farm now, because it's beginning to become professional. That's become really interesting. I just finished a book. I do my small promotion about urban farming, but it's only in French, sorry. So if you speak French, okay, but it's about this, what's going on in the world about urban farming. And we win really interesting urban farming project research with European Commission. The first one is the Interreg. It's about greenhouse on a roof. So we study the synergy between roof and greenhouse, in terms of CO2, in terms of energy, and also with water. So it's just the beginning of this international research program. And we also win an interesting one about circular economy, how to use waste in order to produce plants, to be really short. And well, as you see in this French picture, urban farming, professional urban farming are really in every places into the city, from the ground, from the underground. You have some project underground to the roof. So we will see that together. So this book, you know. I also work as a volunteer for the Association of Professional Urban Agriculture in France. It's just started since last year. It's now 70 professional structure, so it's mostly in Paris. Half of them are in Paris, the other are in other cities in France. So the idea is to work together to create a network of professionals. It's almost 500 people included into this association. And the idea is also to work on legal status, regulation, and technical problem we have all together. So it's an association really open from the low-tech project to the high-tech project. We don't have a specification for technology. So I'm gonna tell you first what's going on in Paris. To understand why we have so many projects, it's important to know the strategy, what's going on in Paris, because the mayor of the city is really involved into urban farms, and so we're gonna try to understand why. So I'm going to explain you what's going on about the strategy, the political strategy of Paris. And first, and second, we're gonna go on really the real projects, from the ground to the roof to indoor farming at the end with Agricole. So Paris, as you see on those maps, it was before in white. It's the buildings. So at the beginning of the 18th century, it was quite a small town. And around, you see in orange, we have horticulture, and in yellow, you have field crops. So it was a city surrounded by agriculture, as lots of European cities. At the beginning of the 20th century, the city was huge, as you see in white, but we still have a belt of horticulture around the city. Horticulture and also arboriculture with the orchard or the fruit trees, etc. And now, at the moment, we have more nature into the city. Maybe you can't see really that. You can't really see that on this picture. But once you zoom in, you see the nature is here as a park, as a square, as I will say conventional landscape green spaces. But we also have urban farms on urban farming projects inside the city of Paris now. and we have almost 15 hectares of urban farms. Not only urban farms, also community gardens. Here, just one slide about those gardens, because they are the historical urban farming projects. So it's really important to know that in Paris we have 122 shared gardens, which are gardens like not so big, but the space is rent, and not really rent, but people manage the plot all together. They work in association. It's not family gardens, it's different. So it's inside Paris, and the city of Paris is really wants to support them. So it creates La Maison du Jardinage, which is the house of the gardening. So if you have any technical trouble, if you want any advice, you can go to this house and you have lots of explanation. They also create La Charte Main Verte, which is a charter to rule and to explain and to give some ecological way of doing your gardens. And also, Paris is doing at the citizen level, at the private level, from to your balcony, for example. He gives you a lots of helps. For example, they give you 50,000 free seeds packets. Every year, you can have your free seeds to grow on your balcony. They also create a really interesting website called végétalisons.paris.fr. It's a really interesting one. It's lots of tools, lots of helps for the people who want to grow inside their home or on their balcony. And also, it's something very interesting. They give the right to plant into the urban space. So if you have with your friends, with your family, and you see an empty green space close to your house, you can ask the city if you want, you can do your own garden into this space. So it's something really regulates, and it's like a guerrilla gardening. I don't know if you know that, but like a guerrilla gardening, but regulated by the city. And they also sell lots of plants from the municipality nursery. About urban farming now, I mean professional urban farming. The city of Paris wants the architecture become more green. So for that, they make a call called Réinventer Paris. It was an international call open for international architecture firms. They provide the site, and the team can answer with the buildings they want. On most of the about half of the projects were architecture with urban farms. So I put you some projects here. So now it's just project, but it's validated by the city, so it's going to be real in few years in Paris. La Ville Multistrate, as you can see here, is quite interesting because they're going to put a huge greenhouse, a green roof, an edible green roof with a huge garden, which is quite common. But here, if you see Algo House, they're going to grow algae on the facade in order to produce biomass to heat the building. So it's very interesting to follow. If we focus on Pariculteur is really, really interesting, and it shows the council and the municipality strategy. So they have the land, the city has the land, and the private partner has land. On land or roof, they use a lot of roof, in fact. So they say, okay, we want urban farms on those roof, on the land, so we ask like international call again, but only for urban farmers. So if you want to practice your urban farm, your techniques on your economy on those roofs, you can answer. So it was last year, it was 2017, 33 laureates, which represent 5.5 hectares of urban farms. I will show you some projects, and it's going to be create almost 120 local job, so it's really interesting for the job, also for the city. And now I'm working with the city also to the season 2, because it was the season 1, it was a real success, and the city wants more, so they create the season 2 of Pariculteur. Here are some projects. So we will focus on I don't know if I can have. We'll focus on this one, which is now real. They have 4 roofs like that. but they also create flowers production, cut flower production on the ground. They have here, it's the Opéra La Bastille, which is a quite famous building. They create a production of gardens and also beer gardens. They want to produce local beer. So we have 33 projects like this. And finally, just to express the strategy of the city of Paris, they built this building with a huge roof of 7,000 square meters, and they also do like call, international call. I was part of one of the 12 candidates, but we lost. And the laureate was last week. It was last week. It's called Cultivate, and it's going to create a huge greenhouse of 1,000 square meter, 1,020 on 200 square meter. They want to create also community gardens and a lot of space for the sports and for the leisure and the pleasure. So you see the strategy of the city. They know that they have the roof or the land, and they do international call in order to find urban farmers. So I start with the first, it's a good friend. So he created his farm, it was 4 years ago. So I will start from the ground, and after we go on the roof, and we finish on a container, okay? It's my presentation. So we start with the ground. Le paysan urbain of Romainville. Romainville it's Paris, in fact. It's a suburb of Paris, but it's close to the subway. So the farm, it's at 300 meters of the subway. It was an old brown field, so an empty space on the city. It was polluted, so he has to find soil-less solution in order to produce plants. So he has two main activities. The first one is to cultivate and to grow microgreens. We're going to see that later. And also the second activity is to do educational activities. The turnover, you see, it's quite small. It's only 100,000 euro per year, mostly by selling the microgreens, also by doing workshops on team buildings. Team buildings, I don't know if you know that. Team building, since when a company, for example, a huge company, for example, Rabobank or a big one, wants to show to the employee, to the people who works into this company, how a farm works. So you can go to the farm for one day, half a day, and you learn how to farm. And the urban farmer receives a salary for that. It's get paid for that. So it's quite common in urban farm to use this strategy. And the other part is quite interesting because they were landscape architects, one of the people in this farm, so they do landscape studies for people, for companies. So it's part of their business also to do landscape activities. They receive subsidies from the city because they create really social activities. It's almost 50,000 euro per year. Well, I give you some example of my work when I try to understand how an urban farm works, because it's quite difficult. One of the most interesting things, it's the multifunctional aspect of the urban farms. For example, the social aspect, social function is really important for these projects. It creates revenue, it creates a link with the neighborhood. So that's the first function of this project. I forget to tell you that this project, Le Paysan Urbain, it's 10 people, 10 jobs. On two, I forget to tell you the space is 3,000 meters square. So it's not so big, but a square meter, sorry. So the second function is economic. The third is pedagogic. Pedagogic means educational function. The third is providing food, because most of the urban farms doesn't only produce food, they also produce services, produce different functions to the city. So the food is not the main topic of all the urban farms. Environmental function is quite important because they catch a lot of organic wastes from the neighborhood and they compost it in order to create their own substrates, even if they buy commercial substrate right now from Clashman. I know it's by organic Clashman substrate they use. They also have a really interesting function, which is the landscape function. for the city, it's really interesting. In order to have an empty space of a brown field with nothing, they have an urban farm, which is really important for the cities. You see some picture of this interesting project. It's I'm not going to go deeper on this one, but you have to know also that there are the link with the rural activities. In fact, they work in a network of farmers. They are, in fact, the city hub of this network. They catch the products from the suburbs, from the peri-urban projects, traditional agriculture, and they create a basket for the consumer. Us, the paysans urbains, they only provide the microgreens, as you can see here, the small microgreens. It's small sprout of plants. And they sell it directly to the city of Paris and with bicycle. They also win, as you can see here, a pariculteur. I explained you just before the call. They win a really interesting place, which is a 5,000 square meter roof. So they're going to create a bigger urban farm downtown Paris. And educational garden, it's quite important for them. They have 2 jobs or 3 jobs, 2 jobs, just for educational purpose. The challenge for them now, it's obtain the organic label. We talked that just a few minutes ago, but they can't have the organic label because they are soilless. I mean, the plants are not in the deep soil. In France, we need to have plants into the deep soil to have the organic label. If you practice hydroponic or if you practice a soilless substrate, you can't have any organic label. But they try to have it. So the difficulty for them is to find a substrate for circular economy, a substrate based on organic waste from the cities. They try to find it and to manage it, but it's quite difficult. The land is the most difficult point for the urban farmers, is to find land. So for them, they want to spread the projects in other cities. So they need to find other lands and other people interesting by doing the paysans urbains again. And they want to increase the leasing. The leasing of the land, most of the time, is quite short. For them, it's only 1 year. So each year, they need to sign another contract. So for the investors, for the insurance, it's quite tricky. And become less dependent of the subsidies, for sure. They want to become independent of the city. Another project, so we start from the ground. They have a really interesting one close to a school, but they also do projects on a roof. So they call it Veni Verdi. It's 7 people. It's one of the older urban farmer of Paris. It was at the beginning of the year 2010. So now there are 8 years, sorry. They mostly do social activities, again, but specifically for schools. So what is very interesting in this project, it's 4,200 square meters, is that they do a rehabilitation of the traditional green space around the school. So they convert it into gardens, huge gardens, mostly about horticulture activities, also flowers, small fruit, orchard, chicken. They have a chicken greenhouse, a small greenhouse on the ground, just for the plantlet, just to reproduce the plant at the spring for the season. And here they have a security of the lease of the land because it's 9 years, so they can do whatever they want. And they are really close to the teachers, and they spread the idea of how to cultivate into the city. So their main activity are landscaping, educational activities, and selling. I want to tell you just about their strategy to sell. They call it the Robin Hood strategy. It's quite simple. They sell their products to healthy people in downtown Paris. So they sell it with a price quite high. Like that, they can pay for more social activities. It's simple, but it's working well. So they sell edible flowers, radish, etc., etc. Species that they cultivate are quite rare or old species, or species that it's quite difficult to find on the current market. It's also a strategy of the urban farmers to find species that are not so common. It's not a question of competition with conventional urban conventional farms. The idea is to be complementary. So you have to know also, I put this slide just to explain what's going on also about the roof in Paris, because this institute, this Urban Planning Agency of Paris, which is paid by Paris, made a huge study about the roof just to know the potentiality of roof in Paris. So they find after a few months of studies that 80 hectares of flat and robust rooftop exist into the city. Like that, the mayor of city, she said, okay, we can do, in fact, urban farms on the roof. So my idea is to do 30 hectares of urban farm in Paris, on a roof, based on this study. You see here the map with those roofs, which are private and also public roofs. It's a mix. So I'm still with Veni Verdi, the same. Veni Verdi has 3 roofs. So this one is a 220 square meter on an old building. Mostly here they do team buildings, as I explain later. So it's part of this economic aspect of this roof is doing team buildings and also selling the vegetables, tomatoes, peas, edible flowers, fava, lots of fava beans. It's really adapted to urban context. They changed their way of cultivation. Before it was a big bag like this, and they changed by a continuous substrate bed, as you can see here. Also, this kind of I don't want to go deeper on this slide, but you understand the way it works and the different function the projects can provide to the city. And the link with the producer, I trying to find the link with the producer. Here you have the producer, here you have the urban farmer, and here you have the consumer at the end. And I try to find the link with the producers, I mean the traditional agriculture. Most of the time it's quite difficult to find, but they buy seeds, they buy plantlets, they buy substrates, they buy irrigation systems. So they are linked with the sector of the agriculture, in fact. Here are some pictures of the other projects they made. The current challenges for them is to find local plants provider with a good quality of plants, especially species, rare species and local species. They have some trouble with irrigation, and it's quite difficult also to reuse rainwater on the project. And they have some trouble with regulation once on the roof. Once you want to do something on the roof, you have a lot of regulation, which are really different from the regulation you have on the ground, especially for accessibility, for fire, etc., etc. So it's like a pioneer activity. Huh? You have to change the rules in order to improve urban farm on the roof. For example, Paris, they changed the local regulation in order to have greenhouses on the roof. Before, it was forbidden to do that. So you have to change the urbanistic regulations. So now maybe a question for you. Are you, after those 2 projects, would you like to work on this kind of farms or not? What do you think about that? If someone wants to tell, otherwise I can continue.
It seems very interesting, but what I would like to ask is how they connect to the buildings underneath, so that the farm, of course, using a rooftop of a company and that, or people living there, and they have an interaction with that as well. I think that would be very interesting to see.
That's a good point, because most of the time the buildings are closed, for example, on a weekend or on holidays. So for an urban farmers, if you can't go to your farm on summer, you're dead. So they have to find a contract. So it's a question of communication with the owner of the buildings. And also for once you work and you have office and you have restaurant or you have people living there, you have to be really careful with the substrate. You have to protect everything. You have to clean everything. So once you design a roof with an urban farm roof, you have to think about the toilet. You have to think about the water you have. You have to think about where your workers can go to rest, or you have to think about where you clean your crops, etc., etc. You have, in fact, it's a good. You have an interface between on this interface. You have to be clean inside the building. So, and also the question of accessibility is really important. Yeah.
I was wondering about the prices to rent roofs because, well, land in the city is more expensive. So how does it compare to the cost for a roof? And since it's a pioneer activity, how to decide if prices are fair and what to pay?
So you mean the price to rent the roof or the plan to buy the roof? Yeah. For example, Pariculture, I was in a discussion meeting with the council, city council. They changed the regulation on how to pay the commercial activity you have on your roof. For example, an urban farmer pay just 500 euro per year on once he has his roof, even if it's a commercial activity in downtown Paris. To compare with a traditional shop, we pay a lot of tax. The urban farm has a special tax, a special rate in order to improve urban farms on the roof. So it was a lot of discussion in between the different services, technical services, into the municipality in order to change that. But it was interesting because they really want urban farm on the roof, so they do lots of effort to do that. But it's a really interesting question because if you have to pay a lot your roof to do your urban farm on the roof, it's difficult to find an economical balance at final to your project. Yeah.
Yes, so you talked about participation, and my question is is it an issue? So is there sometimes problems with participation? And the second one, accordingly, is that okay, does the municipality have any stimulation or tools to stimulate the participation?
Keep your speaker, because participation, can you define it? What do you mean by participation? You mean by the citizens or by the school who go to your farm, or by local people? You mean the neighborhood?
Yeah.
How do you?
Let's say neighborhood.
Yeah, but your question is really important because it lets think about a huge problematic about urban farms, which is the privatization of the urban space, or the privatization of the space, in fact. Because urban farms are quite private most of the time. They try to be open. The two projects I show you are really open to compare with the other one I will present you. Because they have subsidies from the city, so they need to be open at minimum, and they provide social aspect, and they try to get some revenue from those social activities. So for them, that's really important to be open as more as they can. But the question is still remain, it's the privatization of urban spaces in general. And maybe it's the end of the urban space, on the free urban space for everyone, if we have a lot of urban farms everywhere. That's the most important critique about Pariculture call. The newspaper use this argument. They say, oh, it's a privatization of urban space, so stop urban farming, kind of.
So coming back to your question, who of you would like to work on an urban farm? Now you heard about all those cool projects. Nobody yet? One person? Okay, have to continue.
I have to continue. So, I'm going to go into more technological farms now. So we're going to talk about AgriPolis, which is a more mature project now. It's almost 3 years of practice, so they know really well what they do. They practice on the roof, and they use vertical columns of aeroponics system. It's fertilizer, chemicals, and also organics fertilizer. It's a mix. They are really good because they can be implanted into really low-bearing situation. I mean, if you have a roof who can access only 100 or 150 kilograms per meter square, a square meter, sorry, you can use this technique. So they can spread this technique in different kind of roof, not only a really huge and robust roof. The economical model and business model of this company is really simple. It's only production and selling of the product, no more. They are not really open for social activities or to the neighborhood. They are quite private. Mostly they are on private roofs, on not public roofs. Even if they also win a pariculture call one roof, so it's a public roof, but it's the only one. And the prices of their products in between conventional and organic products. So it's not so high. Let's go deeper in this project. So this project is 5 people. The 5 people, and they have 4 roofs. And at the addition, it's 1,200 square meter. More than 40 species are grown and cultivated. The productivity, they told that, but I was not there to see that with my eyes, but they told us that 80 columns in one roof, for example, can produce 40 to 60 tons of vegetables. So it's quite productive. Actually, we test those columns into our institute. We do experiments with that to understand how it works and is it a good yield or not. They start with their own plantlet, so they have their own small nursery. They don't start with seeds directly into the columns. They do traditional horticulturist activities, and after they put the plantlet into the columns. They use no pesticides. The only thing is they need electricity because they use pump. And they also need anchors of bamboo to maintain the columns. Maybe you see that here. You see the bamboo structure. It's really light. They use steel, I forget how to say, but they maintain the bamboo with I don't know how to say, but with something to be balanced into the roof. So it's really light. What can I say more about this one? How you see how it's become green and really explosive during the summer. And they also use climbing plants. You can produce tomatoes on it. They also protect the cultivation against birds. You have to don't forget about the birds, because the birds eat your tomatoes, eat everything. So they protect that with the nets, as you can see here, and also you have horizontal nets in a way. My question was, do you think that in Amsterdam you can have this kind of product, this kind of columns, really light, or your roof are not so flat? But you know, in Paris, roofs are not so flat. We have only 80 hectares of roof. So, do you think you can have that in Netherlands too?
Somebody knows? You have an answer?
Thank you. I actually did my bachelor thesis on this. So it's possible. I don't know how many hectares it would be now, but when I did it, a lot of roofs are so old and they're not stable, so it would take a lot of investments to make the roofs, capable of supporting all that weight. So for now, I mean, in my thesis, I found a lot of potential just on the floors, on the surface. But I mean, it would be cool if we had like a similar green city. Potential.
Okay.
There's a beautiful garden on the rooftop at an old office building in Amsterdam. And the installation of the garden for the building already pays the investment back in 3 years. So now the vegetables are for free for the people that have offices in the building. South Park. So there are, but Amsterdam has the sloped rooftops. So they try to make a system where you click in, but it's more difficult in Amsterdam. For them, there's more space.
Rotterdam will be better, okay.
Anybody has something to add? Any other
Maybe some
project?
questions if you want, but technical one, economical one, social for this one, maybe not, but or I continue, no problem. One question.
Well, when I see the old city like Amsterdam, it comes to my mind that some cities have the UNESCO World Heritage label on it, and it's very difficult to do things there. So I cannot imagine, like, I don't know if Amsterdam has it or not, but in historical roofs like in Prague or in these old cities, I think it would not be possible, not going already into this, in the structure of the roof, but also because of the protection in these old cities. If I focus there, I could not do that there, despite I'm very much green roof, but yeah.
Good question about the historical protection, because Paris, it's full of historical protection. Each historical building has 500 meters square of square meter of protection around himself. So in Paris, most of the city is protected. But once you change the regulation, for example, I told you about the greenhouse on the roof, if the city mayor wants to change the regulation, the historical architects, because it's historical architects which are quite difficult to convince, they don't have the choice. If it's okay for the regulation, they can't do it. So you still have to ask the historical architects, but it's gonna be much more okay if the regulation on the law is okay to doing that. I don't know if it's clear, but it's also a question of municipality or mayor strategy, and if they really want that, even if it's very protected, I think they can do it. But in a nice way, you don't have to, you cannot put a very traditional greenhouse like this. You have to do something design and include into the architecture. Okay, I continue. This time we're gonna talk what's going on inside the buildings or inside containers. So before speaking about indoor, very technological urban farming, I want to tell you that inside buildings you can do something very low tech. You can do something close to circular economy. The interesting example we have is La Boîte à Champignons. I heard, and I visited that in Rotterdam, you have a Rotterdam. It's also a mushroom production. Well, here it's a really solid company. It's 10 people, 7 employers, sorry, 7 employers. It's 1,000 square meters of production area. They produce pleurote, which is a species of mushroom, and they sell it to the restaurants. This is the main economical engine. The other economical engine of this boîte à champignons is selling a small kit of production for public, for you. If you want to buy it, you can. You go on their website and you can buy your own small kit to grow your own mushrooms. And what is interesting is they are included into circular economy because they use coffee ground waste. So it's a very original substrate, and they cultivate the mushroom on it. Recently, they tried to cultivate also microgreens on mushroom all together in the same space, because mushroom production give a lot of CO2 and a lot of heat, which are really good for microgreens on plants production in general. So they try to mix those two production in the same place. I will show you a picture here. You see, it's just the beginning of the microgreens production, but you see the mix between mushroom production and also microgreens. They use LED for the microgreens because it's inside a building. And what is interesting is they use empty parking lot. I mean, use underground parking lot in Paris. Most of the parts of them are empty, are not using because people don't have so many cars as before. So the people of the housing people, they don't know what to do with those underground parking lots. So they win, and they had the rights to cultivate mushroom on it. And you see here the small kit of production they sell. It's 50 to 17 euro per kit. And they also sell some transformed products. Indoor farms, we also have the very technological one, which is AgriCool. It was quite famous because he raised a lot of money. It was for almost 14 million euro from capitals, private funding, risk capital. It's people who who believe in these productions and they follow them. They use zero pesticide, zero herbicide, as a lot of urban indoor farming projects as I visit is the same. They have almost 30 employees right now. Growers, guys from in computers, specialists of lightings, etc., etc. They have a huge R&D area of 1,500 square meters. And their idea is to provide strawberries, because they focus on strawberries exclusively, all year around. They don't really care about seasonal aspect for them. It's not the point, because once they sell strawberries in winter, it's where they make money. Because they are the only one who can produce strawberries, fresh, local, etc., etc. So here you have a small template of the historical aspect of this small company. It was a startup at the beginning of 2015 when I met them. So they are from farmers. Their father were farmers, but they made commercial and market studies. And they built their own container by themselves in the farm of their grandparents, of their parents, sorry. And they bring this container into Paris as a demonstration. After that, they can get lots of money from private, because it was a really commercial activity and it was really marketing starts. So the city of Paris likes this idea. Paris is really open, as you can see, and they provide them this space. It was 800 square meters where they can test and rent, do a lot of experiments, about different lightings, fertilizer, plants, etc. And right now, after raising all this money from private capital, they have the huge urban, transformation on where they built the container. It's, I told you, it's 1,500 square meters. So you can see some picture from inside. What is really interesting is that they have their own labo, they do their own tests on nutritive and gustative aspects. It's 2 people working on this field. They use aeroponic. It's not hydroponic, it's aeroponic. It's with chemicals. And the idea is to produce 3,500 strawberry plants per container per year. They need to change the plants every cycle, because, as you know, strawberry needs to love the frost, need the frost. We call it vernalization, in order to produce plants. So they change each time the plant. So it's really plants consuming. They also have an automatic bumblebee hive, because they need bumblebee to do the pollination of the strawberry. So they control the strawberry, growing with the bumblebee hive. Also, my drawings, just to let you know that the business model of this company is to, if you buy 3 containers, they call it cool containers, you can provide one job. And they work like a franchise, so it's like McDonald's or Starbucks or stuff like that. It's the same idea. They provide the expertise, technical expertise, marketing, and also a bunch of clients. And the price of the container is quite confidential now, but it's between 45 to 70 euro. So here is some picture of the first containers they implanted into Paris. There are implanted 4 containers because they just finished the R&D phases. So you can see from the construction site to the transportation on site, the final installation. Here you have another one. They use empty car plots. It's two spaces, 2 cars, and you can put your container on it. Okay. Wow, just last slide, just to explain and to show you that they just started to sell their strawberries this winter. Just after, you can ask, just after. And they almost have 40,000 clients because they did a huge website and advertisement with using websites. Alors, the current challenges, because I know them really well and we work together in the same scientific research program. So the most difficult things is to find autonomy of plant-led production, as I told you, because of the vernalization. So they try to work on vernalization into a containers dedicated for that. Energy consumption and lead efficiency, of course, is all the indoor farming is the main trouble. The main big problem is the energy consumption. It's amazing, especially to maintain the climate. The sensor on user-friendly control panel, because the idea is to control the container far away from the internet, for example. The using of biofertilizer also. In aeroponic, it's not so easy to use biofertilizer. And also the current question is to increase the level of nutrients on providing other species of strawberries, because they are very focused on one species, which is a magnum species, a quite common species, but they want to improve and to provide on other tastes of strawberries to their customers. Okay, what do you think about that? What was my question? So are you ready to eat those kind of strawberries? Or are you scared?
Yeah, so what do they taste like? Are they nice? Because I've had things from greenhouses here, and they don't taste as nice as tomatoes, say, you grow outside of a greenhouse. The flavor is different, depending, like if you have a very controlled process, I don't know the science behind that, but I have noticed that things grown in a greenhouse under very, very controlled environments, and very quickly as well, the LEDs are changed to make them grow faster, and they don't taste as nice. So, do these strawberries taste as good?
Sorry?
Do they taste good?
You want the answer now, or because I know them, so I eat a lot of strawberries, but I'm not an expert of strawberries. So we ask experts. And experts. So we have, so we cultivate us because we try in our circular economy program. We try the same species of strawberries as agricultural strawberries. So we want to compare this one, so it's substrate, outdoor with traditional sun, etc. But it's not deep soil, it's not organic, it's, like that. And we compare with indoor strawberries. And you see Astrodor, so it's red. And you see here in green, it's agricole. So we ask experts, it was 30 experts, they work in a white labo, and they just know how to test strawberries. They do that every day. So they are formed to do that. It exists the same for carrots, cabbage, everything. And once you see that, the differences are not really remarkable. For experts, there are some difference, brilliance, which is how it looks. It's not really the taste, it's how it looks. The global taste, it's better outdoors than indoor, but it's just 1 point to 10. So it's not, if you are not an expert, you can't really see the difference, in fact. To synthesize this one is to see that it's just, you can't see the difference. It's the same taste, it's not better, it's not bad, but it's the same.
How much?
No, that's the mistake. No, not a mistake, but we don't have enough time or money to do the nutrient aspect. And we do that with Christine, as you know, Christine Aubry from AgroParisTech. We work together, and we will do the nutrient aspect. What is the nutrition into those kind of strawberries to compare with outdoor strawberries? But the species is the same. We collect them at the same time, so the difference is not so easy to see.
And how much are they?
How much?
What is the price?
Yeah, it's €4 for 250 grams.
Okay, so who would buy €4, 250 grams agricole strawberries? Raise your hand. Would you buy it? Well, okay. Still need some more, to do some more commercial. I know that it's 1:30, so I know that some of you have to go for for your lectures. So I would say thank you and go to your lectures. But for the rest who can still stay, we still have space for questions and answers.
Thank you. If you want to ask me some questions or more information, you write an email, no problem.
I'll just wait until they leave and then we can go.
Was okay?
My
French accent was understandable.
That's nice. Yeah, I think it was very interesting. Also very specific, and that's nice. Yeah, because you kind of got into all those details, you know, like all.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I can
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
So for the time, it was perfect.
Yeah.
45 minutes.
Yeah.